Item Number SCP-496. Object Class Keter. Special Containment Procedures. MTF Gamma-6 Deep Feeders are to assist MTF Beta-7 Maz Hatters in monitoring and researching SCP-496. The current perimeter around SCP-496 is to be publicly designated as a protected marine wildlife reserve. All personnel located inside of the perimeter must wear waterproof protective gear that covers their entire person and avoid any skin contact with water. Personnel studying SCP-496 are to focus their research on finding a way of slowing or halting the spread of SCP-496. Description: SCP-496 is a substance composed primarily of calcium carbonate that covers a 35 square kilometer area of the sea floor, 84 kilometers off the coast of Jakarta, Indonesia. The substance has characteristics of a waterborne contagion that is capable of infecting an organism via contact with the skin. Once SCP-496 has infected an organic substance, it will begin the process of converting all organic matter of the subject into SCP-496. Signs and symptoms of an SCP-496 infection include batches of red or skin-colored welts. Note: subjects with a tendency to perspirate heavily will show increased amounts of welts. Severe itching. Note: water has been shown to reduce the severity on the infected areas it is applied to. However, exposure to moisture of any kind will accelerate the infection. Painful swelling of the lips, eyelids, and inside the throat. Note: internal bleeding may occur depending on how hydrated the subject is. Once the SCP-496 infection reaches the brain, the victim may suffer from delusions, disorganized thinking, extremely disorganized or abnormal motor behavior, hallucinations. Note: testimony of the hallucinations experienced by Agent Viva can be found in Addendum 496-1. Once the SCP-496 infection has spread throughout the entire body, the following symptoms will occur. Conversion of all organic matter into SCP-496. Normally, the process takes 17 hours. However, if the subject is submerged into water, the transformation will occur within 56 minutes. Note: most subjects exposed to SCP-496 have expired before reaching this stage of infection. Addendum 496-1. SCP-496 was discovered by a Foundation research vessel while investigating reports of an abandoned fishing liner drifting in the middle of the ocean. Inspection of the fish hold of the ship revealed a large mass of SCP-496, which formed due to infected fish being stored in close proximity. The ship was boarded by a local Foundation research vessel. Attempts to locate the missing crew failed. However, an individual infected by SCP-496 was found inside of a locked room in the cargo hold of the ship. The state of the room showed signs of an aggressive struggle. Addendum 496-2. Due to a lack of understanding of the contagious properties of SCP-496, Agent Viva became exposed to SCP-496 while inspecting the infected individual. The moment Foundation personnel became aware of the contagion, the subject was quarantined in a standard containment cell located on the research vessel. Agent Viva agreed to cooperate while under quarantine, and a portion of the video log from their observation has been added to this file. Video log. Agent Viva is locked inside of a containment room, located in the storage hold of the ship. A camera has been placed in the room so Dr. Wilson may observe the infection as it advances. At the time of this segment, approximately 50% of the subject's body has been converted into SCP-496. Begin log. Dr. Wilson. Agent, are you still able to communicate? Agent Viva. Yes. It's hard, though. The subject begins looking around the room, causing flakes of SCP-496 to fall off of their neck. Agent Viva. I'm seeing things. This isn't real. Dr. Wilson. Agent, what are you seeing? The subject is silent for 12 seconds. Dr. Wilson. Agent Viva. A city made of stone. It's underwater. It's full of people, but they aren't drowning. They look happy. There's a temple decorated in so many different shades of coral. Dr. Wilson, can you see the room you are in? Agent Viva. Yes, but I can see the people too. The people going into the temple and praying. They look beautiful with the coral adorned on their face. The subject walks to the door of her cell and attempts to escape. Agent Viva, we should go back. It's better down there. Please let me out. Dr. Wilson. Agent Viva, please try and focus on what you are seeing. Step away from the... Agent Viva, the water made us, and it wants us back. The subject begins pounding on the door while pleading to be released. Vocalization ended once Agent Viva's esophagus fully closed due to swelling. Agent Viva then expired due to suffocation. End log. Note: after the report of a contagion was received, MTF Beta 7, Maz Hatters, and MTF Gamma 6, Deep Feeders, were dispatched to begin investigating the seabed for signs of SCP-496. Controlled testing of SCP-496 on D-Class personnel is authorized in order to study its effects. Addendum 496-3. Further investigations of the seabed have revealed structures that resemble those described by Agent Viva, buried underneath a 3-meter thick layer of SCP-496. Carbon dating has confirmed the structures to be over 3,000 years old. As of the writing of this document, 1,312 humanoids infected by SCP-496 have been discovered inside of these structures. The current perimeter of SCP-496, as of the writing of this addendum, spans a 35-kilometer area and is growing at a rate of 4.7 meters a year. Item number: SCP-510. Object Class: Keter. Special Containment Procedures. Instances of SCP-510 are to be treated as a Level 1 infective substance and are not to be handled by anyone not in Contained Atmosphere Hazmat (CAHM) suits. Any staff interacting with SCP-510 must be monitored for 1 month after interaction. Infestation by SCP-510 will be met with immediate quarantine and sterilization of the surrounding area. Containment units must have airtight seals on any and all possible access points. Staff access is to be provided by a dual airlock, with chemical showers at each stage. Robotic surrogates are to be used whenever possible for SCP-510 interaction, and all materials interacting with SCP-510 are to be sterilized and quarantined for 1 month after interaction. Seals are to be checked and repaired weekly. Any staff observed expressing elevated levels of fatigue, sleepiness, or exhaustion are to be quarantined and tested for infection. In the event of multi-subject infestation, site-wide lockdown will be initiated. Description: SCP-510 has thus far proven difficult to fully identify. It is possibly a form of microorganism or a form of nanite. The particles of SCP-510 appear to be surrounded by a field that causes a blurring effect, even at high magnification. Tests have come back with wildly varying results, and samples have simultaneously exhibited properties of organic and non-organic matter, as well as properties of solids, liquids, and gases. Current research views it as a form of mold or virus due to its response to high heat and chemical sterilization. SCP-510 infests soft surfaces such as fabric, feathers, hair, or foam, with the ability to remain dormant in such substances for years. If SCP-510 encounters delta waves, typically emitted by humans entering sleep, SCP-510 will activate and begin to infest any nearby organic life. Infestation follows a set progression. See Addendum 84-B. Symptoms and progression, most often ending with the death of infested subjects after 4 to 6 days. SCP-510 appears to prefer mammalian life for infestation, primarily human beings. Attempts to artificially infest other life forms have met with very limited success. Possible applications of SCP-510 and its life support function are being researched. High heat and highly acidic chemicals have been able to dissolve SCP-510 particles. Dissolved particles leave behind no detectable residue. Addendum. Document 84B. Symptoms and progression. Stage 1. Infestation. Symptoms: exhaustion, fatigue, sleepiness, general listlessness, itchy eyes, general head pain. Description: SCP-510 begins to form sting-like extrusions, which anchor into the skin. Extrusions continue to grow into the skin, contacting all major organs and systems in 8 to 24 hours. Subjects will grow progressively more tired during this time and will seek out quiet, dark areas in which to sleep. Stage 2. Initial manifestation. Symptoms: deep coma, pillow formation by SCP-510 on the body, progressive invasion of biological systems, nervous, cardiovascular, respiratory, etc. Description: SCP-510 forms large pillow-like growths on the body. These growths are warm and emit a soft light, with a texture described as microfiber plush. Subjects slip into a deep coma, becoming totally unresponsive to any and all outside stimuli. SCP-510 will start to take over biological systems, causing blood, neural activity, and even oxygen to pass through the growths before being returned to the subject. It has been observed that subjects in this stage enter a dream state, more vivid than standard REM sleep. Stage 3. Full manifestation. Symptoms: total dependence on SCP-510 for all biological functions. Bonding of the skin with SCP-510. Slow reduction in mental activity. Description: SCP-510 takes full control of all biological functions for the host organism. Damage to the growths at this point will result in the immediate death of the host, as the growths are now performing all biological functions for the body. A form of accelerated atrophy sets in, with muscular and skeletal structures beginning to weaken and shrink, and total shutdown of most organs. Subjects are observed to lose 44% of their body mass during this stage. SCP-510 will directly bond to the skin, replacing the thin threads with larger protrusions of the growths. The brain begins to slow down and does not register any pain or awareness of these changes, showing high stimulation in areas with contentment and comfort. Stage 4. Conversion. Symptoms: rapid growth of SCP-510, major reduction in host physical mass, absorption of major organs and tissues by SCP-510. Host's brain enters the deep dream state. Description: SCP-510 begins to compromise the basic structure of the body, absorbing organs, skin, bones, and muscles. Subject's mass will be reduced to 1/10 of initial size, with only a few tissues in the brain remaining. The brain enters a state labeled deep dreaming, in which brain activity is reduced to a point that a subject may be declared legally dead. However, brain activity continues, with evidence of some sense of surroundings being recorded. This is remarkable, considering most hosts at this stage are a brain, spinal cord, and a few clumps of tissue encased in SCP-510 growths. Activity at this stage seems to be initially located in comfort and contentment centers, with activity shifting into fear and alarm centers as conversion continues. SCP-510 begins to break down into individual particles on the surface of the growths. Stage 5. Resolution and sporing. Symptoms: absorption of remaining tissues, breakdown of SCP-510 into individual particles. Description: SCP-510 absorbs the remaining tissues, including the brain, over a period of 12 to 14 hours. Brain scans show highly elevated levels of activity, consistent with extreme fear or pain at this point, which slowly shift back into a more relaxed state as the brain is absorbed. After full absorption, SCP-510 will break down into individual particles, with a full breakdown of the growths after 3 hours. Particles will then float in the air until making contact with a receptive surface. Item number: SCP-534. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures: all instances of SCP-534-1, 2, and 3 are to be kept in a plastic-covered airtight containment chamber. Entrance to the containment chamber is to be conducted through a double airlock, the chamber of which is to be equipped with a high-grade disinfectant. With the exception of testing, all personnel entering SCP-534's containment chamber are to wear Class 3 biohazard suits. Description: although the biological mechanisms behind their support are currently not fully understood, SCP-534 appears to be a collection of several different human blood cells and cell fragments that have increased in size several hundred times. The components of SCP-534 have been placed into 3 different classifications: SCP-534-1, erythrocytes; SCP-534-2, neutrophils; and SCP-534-3, thrombocytes. All samples of SCP-534 appear to have the ability to survive while floating in the air and are affected by air currents. All concentrations of cells appear to match normal blood, with SCP-534-1 comprising approximately 97% of SCP-534. No instances of SCP-534 require nutrients. SCP-534-1 acts in a manner typical of normal erythrocytes and averages 1.7 millimeters in width. It will absorb oxygen from the surrounding air. Upon coming into contact with living cells of another organism, SCP-534-1 will actively diffuse oxygen into the organism. Due to SCP-534-1's large size, oversaturation is common. Allowing SCP-534-1 to enter or touch areas of living tissue may cause oxygen poisoning, resulting in death of the affected area. SCP-534-1 appears to have an indefinite lifespan. SCP-534-2 is typically 2.2 millimeters across and will perform phagocytosis upon any foreign organic material it comes into contact with. Air samples from SCP-534-2's containment area have shown them to be 99.9% pathogen-free. Subjects entering areas containing large amounts of SCP-534-2 will report an itchiness in their skin, due to SCP-534-2 destroying their epidermis. Continual exposure to SCP-534-2 will result in subjects being eaten alive. SCP-534-2 dies normally. The remaining mass is eaten by other instances of SCP-534-2. SCP-534-3 is generally 0.5 millimeters across. It will release normal proteins upon becoming disturbed, causing several instances of SCP-534-1 to clot. Recorded sizes of clots have been up to 3 centimeters in length. Subjects who stay in an area with a large amount of SCP-534-3 and SCP-534-1 will become covered in clots within 1 hour. Inhaling SCP-534-1 and SCP-534-3 simultaneously is lethal. Like SCP-534-1, SCP-534-3 appears to have an indefinite lifespan. SCP-534 was originally discovered by Foundation personnel in Prometheus Labs' biology sector, with notes indicating its creation as, quote, a replacement for all blood transfusions, end quote. Although SCP-534-2 was multiplying rapidly, SCP-534-1 and SCP-534-3 are unable to reproduce, and were in limited quantity. Currently, there is no way of reproducing SCP-534-1 or 3, and personnel are advised to be careful in their handling. Item number: SCP-550. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures: SCP-550 is to be held in a standard-sized humanoid cell. SCP-550 should be provided with a human corpse on a bi-weekly basis. Any remaining materials are to be cleaned and removed from the containment chamber after provision. All personnel handling SCP-550 are to wear provided chemical-resistant gloves and hazmat suits at all times. Directions made toward SCP-550 may be broadcast from speakers installed in its containment chamber and should be used for transportation, maintenance, and testing. Description: SCP-550 is a humanoid composed of wood shavings from Fraxinus excelsior, European ash, measuring 2.1 meters in height and 70 kilograms in weight. SCP-550 closely resembles a human male suffering from advanced muscle atrophy, though it lacks all exterior and bodily organs. SCP-550 is mainly compliant to human subjects, though it is restricted to following simple commands. Conversation through alternative systems of communication has been unsuccessful in determining if SCP-550 is sapient. SCP-550 is able to smell despite the lack of any sensory organs, and does this solely for the purpose of locating human corpses. SCP-550 is mainly drawn toward corpses in early stages of putrefaction. If no such cadaver is in the vicinity, it will attempt to locate one itself through bipedal locomotion. Upon finding a cadaver, SCP-550 will unravel itself to create a wide split in the area where a chest would be, and will kneel over the cadaver and make physical contact with the cavity. This cavity does not appear to be different from SCP-550's exterior, and it secretes high concentrations of hydrochloric acid. The acid produced by SCP-550 does not dissolve the wood it is covered in. SCP-550 is capable of incorporating simple molecules and compounds through its cavity. The hydrochloric acid it produces is used in breaking down organic substances located in corpses, allowing it to take nutrients through pores in the wood it is composed of. SCP-550 mainly intakes amino acids and various proteins, though it is unclear in how it uses them to maintain itself. SCP-550 will continue making contact with its chosen corpse, before closing its chest cavity and standing up. SCP-550 will then release a slurry of materials, mostly containing loose portions of epidermis, articles of clothing, if present on the corpse, and stomach bile. When deprived of corpses for several days, SCP-550 will enter a dormant state and refrain from movement for an indefinite period of time until a corpse is available. Addendum 550. Recovery. SCP-550 was found at the site of a mass grave in South Africa. Foundation intelligence was made aware of rumors being passed between locals regarding a Ghûl, descriptions of which had been marked deviations from traditional folklore. MTF Beta-7, Maz Hatters, was dispatched with orders to confirm the existence of a potential Euclid Class being, and to retrieve it on the Foundation's behalf. 28 corpses were found to have been damaged by SCP-550, and Protocol Sown Veil was enacted to restore bodies to acceptable conditions. Several ritualistic items, such as incense, candles, pieces of a large cloth stained with various bodily fluids, utensils, pots, plates, and various salts and spices were found scattered throughout the graveyard. One person was reported missing in the town of SCP-550's original location, a local resident named Siyanda. No corpse has been found that matches the civilian. Other town members claim had begun taking regular trips to a neighboring town prior to their disappearance. On search of the civilian's home, a voicemail from a public phone located in was found. No other evidence of possible involvement with SCP-550 was discovered. Forward. The following is translated from the Bantu language, belonging to the Zulus. Coughing and heavy breathing, masculine voice. We know you feel it in you. I know you do not want to answer me. You need to come. We are here to open those shredded bonds. Never mind their state. You're famished, yet you are not hungry. Where do you expect to hide from what you need? A feminine voice can be heard whispering for 4 seconds before the caller makes a sound of approval. Ketiwiya says she is prepared, so now it is only up to you. Do you not want to let it burn through your bones, mixing you into the slime from where we began? Do you not want to become one with the saliva of the beast, soaking in the juices of your kin? You know what to do. We want to bring ourselves inside the beast. This is not something you should be afraid of. Further unknown background noises are heard. See, Slindil has already brought forth her tendons, fresh. Just look at her pinch the eye out. Lord, I can't wait to feel what it is like inside him. Addendum 550A1 4/19/2011. Analysis of SCP-550 skin samples shows the presence of mucosal cells and microvilli and confirms skin pigmentation as melanin. Dr. has suggested and authorized an MRI scan without sedation. Scan postponed following Incident SCP-550-T1. Incident 550-T1. At 3:43 a.m., date expunged. Surveillance showed that SCP-550 had begun pacing in its cell during research of its dormant state. Agent M and Dr. were given permission to investigate. Surveillance footage shows that standard Foundation procedure was followed, and no abnormalities were found until personnel left. SCP-550 immediately lay down in its cell until a large black tongue, anatomically human, erupted from within SCP-550. Site-36 was placed under lockdown, while the tongue protruding from SCP-550 had begun slathering the entirety of its containment cell. 2 minutes and 14 seconds had passed before the tongue withdrew into SCP-550. An amount of black viscous saliva containing various amounts of organic material from all previously consumed corpses was left on containment chamber walls, along with what appeared to be an intact traditional black Zulu dress. Note: thorough analysis of this material revealed significant titers of a heavily modified variant strain of SCP-742. Additional analysis of genetic material, including the accompanying viral particles, showed significant splicing and incorporation of functional genes from a variety of plants and several scavenger species, aligning with genetic analysis of recovered samples of SCP-3140. Shortly after Incident 550-T1, the tongue belonging to SCP-550 has been recorded to randomly protrude from SCP-550's chest cavity for several seconds. SCP-550 has resorted to remaining in a fetal position, presumably to prevent an event similar to the recent incident. No further deviations in behavior have been noted. Containment procedures are currently being updated. Item Number: SCP-584. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures: vial samples of SCP-584 to be kept in cold storage, in accordance with established biohazard protocols, and access is restricted to personnel of at least Level 2 clearance. Research requires Level 3 approval. Subjects accidentally contaminated with SCP-584 must be quarantined immediately as contact biohazards and must submit to involuntary antiviral treatment. If subject shows no signs of lesion activity for 12 weeks and tests negative in 2 consecutive biopsies, performed at 6 and 12 weeks following exposure, quarantine procedures can be downgraded. Follow-up biopsies at 12 and 24 months must also return negative results before the subject is to be considered clean. Any subject with a positive test for SCP-584 or displaying characteristic lesions should be terminated. Description: SCP-584 is a highly infectious viral pathogen that, if left untreated, causes a disfiguring overgrowth of supernumerary limbs. See file photos. Structurally similar to the herpes simplex family of viruses, SCP-584 spreads via direct person-to-person contact and through contact with infected bodily fluids, and can also cross the placental barrier from an infected mother to her fetus, resulting in characteristic birth defects. SCP-584 typically lies dormant, deep in the dermal tissue of those infected, largely suppressed by the immune system, except for sporadic outbreaks. It is estimated that upwards of 80% of those exposed to the virus are asymptomatic carriers, making actual infection rates unknowable. Current estimates place the highest rates of infection in Asia, particularly India and China, where the virus likely originated. The virus appears limited to humans. An outbreak of SCP-584 typically begins with the appearance of a small, around 2 centimeter, painless lesion, mostly common on the extremities. Often, these lesions appear similar to warts or skin tags. If not removed, the lesion will quickly grow to resemble a fully functional, though often undersized, appendage. Often the appendage will be appropriate to the limb on which the lesion appeared, i.e., extra toes on a foot, extra hands on an arm, etc. But severe outbreaks can trigger severely disfiguring chaotic lesion formation elsewhere on the body, such as the head and torso. Lesions can appear singly or in groups. Notably, SCP-584 has been shown to be able to regenerate missing limbs or digits in subjects who lost them due to accident or congenital, non-genetic defects. These replacement appendages are full-sized and fully functional. It is believed that SCP-584 functions by activating regenerative biological processes that normally cease shortly after embryonic formation. However, SCP-584's effect seems restricted to external organs and appendages only. Antiviral treatment is quite effective at limiting and stopping outbreaks of SCP-584, but currently, there is no cure for the virus, and it is highly communicable. Drug therapy has even been found to stop the growth of lesions in advanced developmental stages. However, it is not effective once the appendage is fully formed. Surgical removal of lesions is only effective in the long term, if coupled with drug therapy, as scar sites are prone to developing recurrent lesions. SCP-584 infection in unborn babies, especially if contracted during the first trimester, has resulted in high rates of polymelia, extra limbs, polydactyly, extra fingers, and parasitic twinning. Item Number: SCP-593. Object Class: Euclid. Special Containment Procedures: SCP-593 is to be stored under Standard Biosafety Level 4 precautions at all times. Use of a hazmat suit with self-contained oxygen supply is mandatory. Entry and exit to any lab containing samples of SCP-593 must include multiple showers, ultraviolet light bombardment, a vacuum room, and regularly tested electronically secured airlocks. Individuals suspected of infection with SCP-593 must be isolated from the general population under BSL-4 protocols immediately and kept in a darkened environment until the maximum infectivity and incubation period have both passed, generally a period of 30 days. Medical treatment of confirmed SCP-593 victims requires observation of BSL-4 protocols and the immediate incineration or immersion in acid of all materials with which the victims have had contact, along with any and all biological waste produced. Description: SCP-593 is a paramyxovirus of the genus Morbillivirus that exhibits a unique capacity for severe neurological damage after the onset of primary symptoms. The majority of its genome is identical to that of the measles virus, with a significant percentage of genetic material apparently derived from rinderpest virus, aka cattle plague, or steppe murrain. Its contagion rate is equal to that of measles. 90% of individuals without immunity who share a household with an SCP-593 morbillivirus patient will develop the infection themselves within 30 days. Initial stages of infection are virtually identical to measles, beginning with a fever that may reach as high as 41 degrees Celsius. Koplik spots appear on the victim's buccal and lingual mucosae early in the infection. Unlike standard measles infections, however, the spots remain visible for 2 to 3 days. Several days after the fever begins and conjunctivitis sets in, the victim's body is quickly covered in a generalized erythematous maculopapular rash that spreads from the head to the feet in less than a day. Ocular sensitivity to light also sets in around this time, and victims not confined to darkened areas or otherwise protected from light may suffer consequences up to and including total blindness. The rash generally turns from red in color to dark brown several days after eruption, at which point the neurological sequelae invariably set in. The progression of symptoms begins with irritability and erratic behavior which may be mistaken for natural reactions to an unpleasant infection and confinement situation. However, myoclonic spasms and seizures swiftly follow. EEG examination of victims shows widespread cortical dysfunction. Physical examination of victims' brains shows involvement of data expunged and significantly elevated gamma-globulin titers. The true signature of the SCP-593 morbillivirus, however, lies in its permanent neurological effects. SCP-593 completely destroys the portion of its victims' brains that deals with concepts of number and mathematics. Its surviving victims literally cannot distinguish between 2 and millions, or perform even the most rudimentary addition, let alone more advanced calculations. Counting accurately, even only from 1 to 10, is only possible by dint of memorization. If asked to determine whether one number is larger than another, survivors cannot give an accurate answer. Oddly, survivors are seldom if ever distressed by this fact, unless forced by experimenters to work on mathematical problems, at which point they become defensive and often exhibit aggression. SCP-593 was discovered in 2000 in the form of several pressurized containers attached to the central HVAC equipment for the main trading floor. The initial outbreak was swiftly contained, and damage control measures taken in the media, but the origin of the virus remains unknown. Investigation of all labs known to the Foundation to be capable of genetically engineering such an organism is underway. Addendum: despite its genetic similarity to measles and rinderpest, no vaccine currently exists for SCP-593. Attempts to attenuate the virus's strength for use as a live virus vaccine have so far proved useless. Killed virus vaccines do not appear to trigger the body's immune response. Immediate containment and isolation of all possible victims is recommended, as well as immediate investigation of outbreaks of measles in populations where measles vaccine uptake is normally historically high. Lesson complete. To continue with your orientation training, subscribe to SCP Orientation right now, and make sure you don't miss any of our upcoming videos.